Hey guys, so this week I've been pondering about how creativity and frugality are actually very closely related. And I think that's partly why I took to frugality so eagerly, because for me it became another form of creativity. So I've always been a creative person since I can remember. I've spent the majority of my life either attached to a pencil and paper or some sort of thread or yarn. But about 3 years ago, I found I wasn't able to do as much arts and crafts as I used to because of arthritis in my hands. And around the same time, me and my partner were trying to save for our first home as well, to buy our first home. So I started delving much more deeply into frugality. I expected it to help us save money, but I didn't actually expect it to scratch my creative itch quite so much. And I've realized that frugality is actually like a giant puzzle, and I happen to adore puzzles. It's like, I need something for this, but I only have these things to work with. How can I make it work? And I genuinely loved that. So, trying to be resourceful with what you already have instead of immediately buying something is strangely satisfying. And I think that's what has really changed frugality for me. Instead of feeling like I'm being deprived of something, it becomes a game almost, like a game of possibilities. It makes you look at everything you have in a different way, and I confess I have to stop myself squirreling away too many boxes, bits of card, pieces of string, and anything like that. Because, well, they might come in handy one day, right? I will never throw out a jar though, and I always find uses for them. I've probably made more things from materials that I've upcycled, found, been given, or bought really cheaply than things I've actually spent a lot of money on, to be honest. And it's quite ironic, I guess, because sometimes I was actually too precious with the expensive materials. For example, I have some silk velvet that I bought over 20 years ago that I've never actually used because I was always waiting for that right project to do it justice. But that's probably a story for another video. My point is, sometimes having something expensive makes us afraid to use it. Whereas if I'm making something from a cardboard box or an old pair of jeans, I'll happily cut them up and see what happens. But I think there's another reason I've come to love this side of frugality. Every little problem that you solve gives you a tiny reminder that you're capable of figuring things out. I genuinely get a thrill from finding a cheaper way of doing something. It's like I've completed a puzzle and achieved something. And as I've said in a previous video, I find it easier to go without something than earn the money to buy it. So becoming more resourceful has helped remove some of that pressure I used to feel about needing to earn more money. When I was a kid, we didn't have much money for things like heating, but we did have some cheap yarn and we were able to make blankets and jumpers to keep us warm. I actually still have some jumpers that my mum made me about 30 years ago that are actually still going strong. I find being creatively frugal has also changed the way I look at waste. Before I throw something away, I often ask myself, can this be used for something else first? We have what we call our shower bucket, basically a washing up bowl that catches the cold water while we're waiting for the shower to heat up. We can then use that water for other things, such as washing clothes. Bread bags can become food bags. Packaging can line a waste bin. Toilet roll tubes can become seedling starters or craft materials. And as a self-proclaimed Tetris master, I have to admit that the puzzle of finding another use for things can become quite addictive. I think that's probably why I've always loved stories like Tinkerbell and the Borrowers. I love those little worlds where ordinary things become something completely different depending on how you look at them. thimble becomes a basket, an acorn cup becomes a hat, a button becomes a plate. The object hasn't changed, only the way they've imagined using it has. And I think that's what frugality has taught me to do. To look at what I already have and ask, what else could this be? And of course, being frugal doesn't mean never buying something. Sometimes you genuinely need something, but even then, being resourceful can help you find a cheaper option. You can buy something secondhand, adapt something you already own, or choose something that can serve several purposes. For me, that's what makes frugality feel so different from deprivation. It's not about asking, what do I have to go without? It's asking, what can I do with what I already have? And I think there's something quite empowering about that. So, what creative ways have you found to save money? I would really love to hear about them in the comments below. And please be sure to subscribe if you've enjoyed this, and I will see you next time on An Acorn's View.